You guys, this story is insane. So back in September of 1996, 75-year-old Sally Snowden McKay and her cousin, 52-year-old Lee Baker, were murdered at the historic Snowden house, a family estate on Horseshoe Lake in Hughes, Arkansas. Their killer was identified as then 16-year-old Travis Lewis, a neighbor whose mother worked at the family's residence as a housekeeper. Authorities say that he was apprehended after he was caught trying to set the historic home on fire in order to cover his tracks. Travis did end up pleading guilty to taking both victims' lives and was sentenced to 28 and a half years in prison. However, he maintained his innocence throughout his time served, claiming that someone else did this and not him. Now, Martha McKay right here, the daughter of Sally, was said to have been a Buddhist. She was all about forgiveness. She was all about second chances. So instead of having bitterness and anger in her heart for Travis, she decided to forgive him. And not only did she choose to forgive him, but she also chose to be a friend to him, to communicate with him, and to help him with his second chance at life. She began communicating with him while he was serving time. She visited him, and she even supported his parole in 2018. Martha was a huge part of why Travis ultimately ended up being released from prison on parole after only serving about 22 to 23 years of his 28-year sentence. Now, after Travis's release, Martha ended up offering Travis a job on the grounds of the Snowden house, which she had actually redesigned and turned into a luxury bed and breakfast. She even allowed him to live in one of the homes on the property in order to help rebuild his life. However, that arrangement quickly went down the drain. About a year and a half after his release, $10,000 in cash was stolen by Travis from this home. Martha ended up firing Travis and kicking him off the property, and about a month later, on March 25th, 2020, Travis, who was 39 years old, returned back to the Snowden property and he broke in. When authorities arrived on scene after being notified that her alarm system was triggered, they found 63-year-old Martha McKay dead with puncture and blunt force trauma wounds at the top of the staircase in this residence. Travis quickly tried to flee the scene. He ended up jumping from a second-story window in this property and then breaking into a vehicle that ultimately got stuck in the yard. Once the vehicle was stuck, he got out of the vehicle and ran into Horseshoe Lake in an attempt to evade law enforcement and hide in the water. However, he ultimately ended up drowning. Travis's body did end up being recovered from Horseshoe Lake, and an autopsy was performed, indicating that his COD was due to drowning and that he had several DRUGSs in his system. I mean, what are the odds that a mother and daughter's lives are both taken 23 years apart in the same residence by the same person? Crazy.